Hello and welcome to Good Morning Transfers. Everton are now without a manager and searching for Rafa Benitez's replacement. We'll take a look at why it didn't work out. Also this hour, do Chelsea need another left back? We'll have the latest on a potential incoming at the club. And one of football's most sought-after players, Erling Haaland, reveals he's being pressured into making a decision about his future. Welcome to everybody. Anton to Louis, Jessica Crichton and Kyle Walker in the studio, and those of you on the Sky Sports News YouTube channel. We start the show with Everton's search for a new manager after they sacked Rafa Benitez yesterday after just 6.5 months in charge. Let's go live to the club's training ground where Vinny O'Connor is. Right, Vinny, Rafa Benitez is gone after a bad run of form. A long list of names that are being linked with replacing him. Who's on that shortlist and what do you expect to happen over the coming hours and days?
It's difficult to know exactly what to expect from this football club. On the one hand, you've got the clear vision and delivery of a new stadium taking shape at Bramley Moor Dock, and on the other hand, you've got the football side of things at the moment where we await to see a clear plan, a clear vision and a clear strategy as well. The club has now made 6 managerial appointments since David Moyes left in 2013, and now they are again starting their search for another new manager. They find themselves 16th in the table after just that one win in the last 13 Premier League games as well. And when it comes to managers under consideration at the moment, Roberto Martinez is a name being considered by the Everton board. Of course, he was the first manager that owner Farhad Moshiri sacked in his time at Goodison Park, while Roberto Martinez took Everton to their highest ever points total in the Premier League. He, of course, followed that up with 2 11th place finishes, leaving the club just days before the final game of the season in May 2016. And the atmosphere around the club at that time, it wasn't great, it has to be said, and it effectively made his departure at that point inevitable after a defeat to Sunderland. Now, in terms of other names, well, Wayne Rooney is obviously the romantic link, isn't it? A return to his boyhood club as a manager. What a story that would be. Had 2 spells here as a player after coming through the academy, of course. And at the moment, though, he is under contract at Derby, but clearly an opportunity for him to return here would be one that he would have to look at. No surprise that Duncan Ferguson is being considered. It seems to me that would be more in an interim role until the end of the season, but who knows, of course, if he were to be successful in that kind of spell. Remember when he was caretaker manager before the appointment of Carlo Ancelotti, he won his first game against Chelsea, drew at Old Trafford against United. He also drew at home to Arsenal as well before Carlo Ancelotti took charge. Other names include Frank Lampard, Rudy Garcia as well. Graham Potter, we hear, isn't interested in the vacancy at this time. And in the past, I know that Everton have also been sounded out about names like Christophe Galtier, Simone Inzaghi as well. But again, at this point, given the club's position, I'm not too sure whether the position would necessarily interest those kind of names at this stage either. But what we do expect is to find out at some point who will take training tomorrow. The players are on a day off today, and the board will consider their deliberations and decide on their next step as to who will be the successor to Rafa Benitez.
Well, Vinny, on Rafa Benitez, how much impact has player recruitment had on his spell?
Yeah, it's had a massive impact, and you think they were hamstrung in the transfer market. £500 million or over £500 million spent by Farhad Moshiri on player recruitment in his time at the club, and arguably, well, the facts are there. The club is in a worse position now than it was before that investment. And Rafa Benitez made the point in his statement as well that financial fair play restrictions really hindered what they wanted to do in the transfer market. And that's due to big money really being spent on poor recruitment. We go back to the 3 number 10s being brought in during Ronald Koeman's time in charge. Steve Walsh was the director of football at that point as well. Only one of those number 10s still at the club, of course. Wayne Rooney subsequently left, and David Klassen has left the football club as well. But players being brought in on big wages and not really producing and then proving difficult to move on as well. Cenk Tosun, I suppose, is a case in point in that respect. Signed in January 2018, started just 24 Premier League games, had loan spells at Palace and Besiktas, but injuries have hindered any kind of chance of really moving him on as well. On top of that, injuries have handed the likes of Andre Gomez, Yerry Mina, Fabian Delph. They haven't been as available as managers would have liked at that point, and which hasn't necessarily made them the wisest of investments. Jean-Philippe Gbamin, his injury problems as well. He started just 2 Premier League games. The club spent £25 million on him and also made a big investment in Alex Iwobi. Evertonians still to really see the best of him. Contrast that, I was looking through it before, with the likes of Mikel Arteta, Tim Cahill, Leighton Baines, Stephen Pienaar, Phil Jagielka, Seamus Coleman, of course, and Tim Howard. Investment in players like that far less significant under David Moyes, but their contribution to the football club will be more worthy of the investment that we've seen under Farhad Moshiri.
Yeah, really interesting reading out those names there. Vinny, thank you. Everton fans, we want you to get in touch, #transfer talk. Of course, this is a transfer show, but there's a massive story about Rafael Benitez, so tell us where it went wrong for him, and of course, who would you like as your new manager? Right, OK, Kyle, how much is this down to Benitez? This is how much is it down to a lack of spending since he took charge?
Well, after that news broke last night, he released a statement on his personal website where he was talking about how difficult the job was. He says the financial situation and then the injuries that followed made things even harder. I am convinced that we would have been better once the injured players were back and with the arrival of the new signings. So he's saying that it was a factor. He's been quite honest about that. If you look back at the summer and the players that he was able to actually bring in, Damari Gray, Andros Townsend, Salomon Rondon, Asmir Begovic as well, all of those names, that was a total of £1.7 million, and that was just for Damari Gray. Now, Everton have definitely seen how that can be used and how Damari Gray has actually helped them this season, but they've not spent any money in that summer window. Fast forward it then to January, we know that they have spent money. We've seen them do that so far. You've got Nathan Patterson, 16 million. You've got Vitaly Mikalenko as well, around £20 million. So they are spending money. It looked like there would be some positive moves as well. Rafa Benitez did hint that there would be maybe some more signings coming in. So I don't think you can blame it just on a lack of spending, because I don't think he was really given the opportunity to actually spend. He clearly wasn't in the summer. He's had a little bit over the last 17, 18 days. But other than that, he didn't get a chance to actually spend more money. So I can't think we can just blame that.
Listening to what Vinny was saying there, Anton, it does seem like recruitment has been a problem at Everton.
A problem? I mean, you could even go so far as to say it's been a bit of a mess, to be brutally honest, simply because, Vinny alluded to it, the number of permanent managers that they've had over the last 9 years means there's inconsistency amongst players within that squad from different managers. But also, the last 3.5 years up to December, they had a director of football in Marcel Brands. Well, how much say did he have over the transfer policy? The players that were brought in the summer were Rafa Benitez's signings. Marcel Brands, well, reportedly, it doesn't even sound like he was able to pick the coach in Rafa Benitez. And obviously Marcel Brands was released. They came to an agreement for him to leave the club in December as well. So structurally, there's a bit of a mess. Recruitment, staff-wise, it's been inconsistent, Everton, over the last few years. Look at the best clubs. Look at Liverpool with Jurgen Klopp working with Michael Edwards. Look at Pep Guardiola and Chico Bergstein in the recruitment team at Manchester City. Go down the league. Graham Potter, Dan Ashworth at Brighton. It's so important to have a structure in place. And then you have Everton. At the moment, they don't have a director of football. They don't have a head of recruitment. And now they don't have a head coach. And their chief exec, Denise Barrett-Baxendale, said in her New Year's message to fans, and I'll quote this, talking about a review of the complete structure at Everton. All structural levels of football operations, including coaching, performance analysis, recruitment, sports science and medical services, are being reviewed at Everton. Well, what's going on? Who's looking after this review? Who's going to appoint the new head coach? Is it going to be the board? Is it going to be the owner who put the last manager in charge, despite the fact that other people didn't want him at the club? These things really need getting sorted out. But the good thing is, I suppose, that it's ground zero now at Everton. Bring in a structure that works from the top down. Everyone's in sync. You've got until the end of the season to get this in place for next season, although they are still technically in a relegation battle as well.
Now, saying that would suggest that a caretaker manager would be better, which would be Duncan Ferguson. We'll get to the manager in just a moment. Robbo says that Martinez is not the man. Nathan says that Wayne Rooney is the man. Mark says that it's not about what the fans want for our new manager. It's a question of who would actually want the job after the last 5 years. And there's one from Pete here says that we should go all out for Graham Potter from Brighton. We understand that he's not interested, though. We saw, Jess, Kyle put that graphic up of a lack of spending in the summer from Everton, but a little bit in January. But Rafa Benitez's predecessors, they did spend.
Yeah, I've had a look at what Carlo Ancelotti and Marco Silva had to spend. And looking at Silva, he was there for about a year and a half. He really went to town in his first season. He raided Barcelona for Yerry Mina and Luca Digne. And then his marquee signing, of course, was Richarlison. So that totaled about 80 million, upwards of 80 million pounds in his first season. Second season, Marco Silva spent even more when he was at Everton, brought in Fabian Delph, Andre Gomez, Jean-Philippe Gbamin, Moise Kean, and, of course, Alex Iwobi. So we're looking at about upwards of £100 million in his second season. Then I had a look at Ancelotti, there for a similar amount of time, about a year and a half as well, brought in Alan, Abdoulaye Doucouré and Ben Godfrey, and that was about £60 million plus. So what that says to us is that those managers were supported financially, they were given the backing of the board. But my question is, was Benitez given that same support? And if he wasn't, why not?
I don't think he was giving it from any area of the club. We clearly know the fans didn't want him. And I was there the day that he was announced. I was in Liverpool talking to fans and getting their reactions. And you can imagine, well, we've heard what they are. And then you look at the time that he was given. It felt like the writing's always kind of been on the wall for Benitez because the fans don't want him. He has brought in some players, as we've said just there, but the results haven't been what the fans wanted, what the club wanted, what the people above him wanted. I feel like it was always going to end in this situation. And now for Everton, where do they go next? Do they give it to Big Dunk again? Everyone's talking about Duncan Ferguson. Do they do that again? They've done that before. They've had experienced managers before. What do they do next?
I just want to push back on what Carl was saying a little bit about the lack of backing for Rafa Benitez. Because he's been, the club's, like we said, Vinny said, it's financial fair play that's dictating that, they've spent so much in the last few years, they can't keep doing that without there being ramifications, sort of, without being punished, basically. So that's probably why. But backing-wise, he's been backed. He made changes behind the scenes with the medical department. He's made changes behind the scenes, obviously, with the recruitment side. He brought the players in the summer. They were his targets. They're his players at the club. Solomon Rondon wasn't on the list of many Premier League clubs, but he was Benitez's player, worked with before. He's at the club now. So they did back him in a way. And Marcel Brands left the club. So there was, and obviously the Luca Digne situation. They backed him, sold the player, and obviously that's kind of covered the cost of the two players that they brought in, by the way, in January. But, so he has had backing. It's not as though he was, he's been completely fighting a battle. He won some very important battles at Everton.
Well, these tweets are coming in, and we're going to move on now to who could take that job, because Ryan says he wants someone that understands the club, so either Martinez or Rooney for him. Mike says need to get Rooney in. He wants him back as well. And there's another Everton fan here who says that Duncan Ferguson should get the chance for the rest of the season. Let's just go through that shortlist again as we understand it. Duncan Ferguson would be interim to the end of the season, potentially. Roberto Martinez could return. Wayne Rooney could come in as manager, head coach. Graham Potter's on the list, but we understand he doesn't want to move yet anyway. Frank Lampard and Rudy Garcia. Right, Kyle, Jess, Anton, it doesn't matter which one of you start. What do you reckon to that shortlist? Who should it be?
Yeah, I saw one of the tweets there recommending Roberto Martinez. Called me a romantic, but I'd love to see him back at Everton. Everton fans might not be happy with that. I'm sure they're loading up to take aim at me on Twitter, but if you do use the
there's a lot. There are a lot saying Martinez, actually, Jess.
That's interesting because when he left, they weren't his biggest fan, of course. But looking at what he did whilst he was at Everton, 42% win percentage, which is one of the best win percentages of any Everton manager in recent years. Took him to the highest ever points total in the Premier League. This time around, he'll have an even better squad to work with. Higher profile players, possibly better quality players. No offence to the team he was working with before. But, of course, he's working with Belgium. He's working with one of the best ranked teams in the world. 10 months away from a World Cup. So that could be a bit of a stumbling block to getting him into Everton.
Yeah, he realistically could win the World Cup.
Very
this time last
possible.
year he could be a world. This time next year he could be a World Cup
Although
winner.
we've been saying that about Belgium winning a major tournament
true.
for a few years now, haven't we?
Good point.
I will say this, though, as well. It's that question of why. We had some tweets before. Who would want to actually come into the club right now? And then in the next tweet, someone saying, get Graham Potter in. Why would Graham Potter want to leave Brighton? The project that he's developed, he's been part of for a number of years now. Why would he want to leave them to go to Everton? He's a long-term manager at Brighton. Doesn't look like there's a long-term manager, as what we've seen over the last 6 years at Everton there. So actually, for the next manager who comes in, Graham Potter said that he's not interested.
I can understand that Potter and Martinez may be this being the wrong time, but Everton will be a big draw. There will be a lot of people who want to go to Everton because they are a massive club with excellent fans.
The message to Everton is just don't panic. We talked about the structural problems. Make sure you bring in a coach that's going to look after everything. You know, make sure you've got somebody that's going to look after the recruitment. This has got to be a 4 or 5 year project. This can't just be, oh, well, yeah, they impressed me in an interview. They've got a good CV. Let's see what happens. You've done that plenty of times and it hasn't worked. Look where you are on the table.
Well, Stephen says that they want Rooney as manager, Duncan Ferguson as assistant. There's another Everton fan who says the exact same thing. And then Paul also says that they should go for Wayne Rooney as well. So a lot of support for their former striker there. There'll be more on Everton throughout the day. Of course, we have got some breaking transfer news as well. And it's Tottenham youngster Dylan Markande. He's having a medical at Blackburn Rovers, ahead of a permanent move to the Championship side. Of course, Blackburn very keen on no longer being a Championship side. They are very much in the hunt for promotion and looking to strengthen their squad with Tottenham youngster Dylan Markande. Right, still to come, it was a busy second week in the market for Newcastle. Will they add a defender to their squad this week? We've just been talking about the Everton manager situation. We've got a little update here. We can say we understand that Roberto Martinez is still high on Everton's wanted list, but it won't be easy because the Belgian FA want him to remain and take charge of the Qatar World Cup, which starts in November. Now, Martinez was the Everton's board's #1 choice in the summer, but the ownership, they decided to appoint Rafael Benitez. The board and the ownership aren't necessarily the same thing at football clubs. So Martinez still high on Everton's wanted list, but Belgium do not, understandably, want to let him go. Right, as promised to Newcastle, now they're a team we've spoken probably the most about this month, and we will continue to do so. We're joined by Emile Franchi now from the True Faith podcast. Good morning to you, Emile. Right, the weekend result, it was a disappointment, no doubt, because it was a draw at home to Watford. What were your thoughts on the new signings, Wood and Trippier?
Well, despite the results, Trippier continues to impress. Saw him against Cambridge. I know it was a bit of a strange game for him to make his debut in, but he got a full 90 minutes. I was impressed then. I was equally impressed against Watford. He is a class above the other players. It's no disrespect to the other players that we've got, but he knows how to pinpoint passes. He's confident in games. He's got that big game experience that we've seen. Euros, World Cup, over in La Liga as well with Atletico. Our other players have it in them. It's just people like Trippier know how to manage those games and wanted to try and give us the best shots. As for Chris Wood, 2 days of training, so it's very hard to judge him on this one appearance. You could say that he was left a little bit isolated. He worked with what he had, and hopefully we'll be able to supply him with some better balls going forward from now on.
Emma, those are the players you've signed. What about the players that you want to bring in? Obviously, like a deal to sign Lille centre-back Sven Botman is looking increasingly unlikely. Newcastle have made offers for Sevilla's Diego Carlos. They're interested in Monaco's Benoit Badiashile. How essential is it that the centre-back position is sorted this month?
Well, we saw it on Saturday. Defence is just leaky. I mean, the entire team, unfortunately, just can't see games out. That's the annoying thing at the moment. We're always just seeing this optimism dented by the performances. But defence is the one thing we've been calling out for. Trippier's in there, but we do need some centre-backs of higher quality than what we have. They've got experience currently of trying to keep us up, but if you can get someone like Diego Carlos in there, my mate Dan's a Sunderland fan. He said through gritted teeth that he's a good player, which means he's definitely a good player. He wouldn't lie to me. But look, someone like that coming into our squad immediately improves us. It's not going to change it overnight, but you'd like to think that just by having that presence in there, any of these players that we're linked with, that we're lucky enough to be linked with now that the takeover's gone through, would be an incredible boost. And yeah, like I say, it might not save us, but just to have those players around the dressing room who can talk about their experiences, their big games, it's bound to help for a bit of the confidence going into this late stage of the season.
Emma, we've already obviously brought in Chris Wood. Looks like the club is still interested in another striker. Hugo Ekitike, what's your thoughts on that? Good signing?
Any striker at the minute is a good striker, because the only striking option that we had on the bench today was one of our two other keepers who could have come on. It's really, really bad at the minute in terms of what we can do for impacting games. Dwight Gale doesn't seem to get a look in at Newcastle anymore until it's like right at the death of games. We need a player who can come on and just do that. And Ekitike, young and unproven in the Premier League will be the first thing that a lot of people will say. But anything to finish a game off would be great. The one thing that Newcastle fans felt was lacking on Saturday was going 1-0 up. Why can't we go and get another goal or another one after that? We had chances. We just couldn't put them away, and they were limited. But you have to be clinical when you're in this relegation fight, and really, when you're not seeing anything change coming off the bench, we can bring on Miguel Almiron, but his goal-scoring record hasn't been fantastic for us, and you still need him to supply some of these players up the top. And like I said before, Chris Wood, he's slipping into a role that has been vacated by Callum Wilson, and we need to give him a little bit more than what he was getting at the weekend. Otherwise, fans are going to start thinking, well, he was invisible. I don't think he was. It's a very tough job, and Joe Linton struggled with that when he was isolated at the front. Callum Wilson still struggles with that role. So let's just see. Any striker would be great. We love a striker at Newcastle, and as games have shown in recent weeks, we need goals.
Now, the club have been linked with so many players, but are there any that you thought they should really be going for in the next 14 days?
Well, we've been promised some sort of marquee signing in central midfield. Now, reports came out over the weekend, late stages, about Donny Van Der Beek, a loan move potentially being in the pipeline for the Man United midfielder. And there's been a big free Donny campaign as well. So a lot of people getting on board with that one. But sadly, it looks like the player doesn't want to come. And we can't really force anything to happen, much like the Botman deal, as you've mentioned. Look, we've just been linked with so many, and I repeat it once again, the fact that Newcastle can move from target to target to target is just incredible. We've gone through so many targets, we've actually started looking at Matt Target from Aston Villa. It's one of the names that's come up now. So I would like to see. I mean, I maintain that Jesse Lingard would be a fantastic signing. He loves a January move, and if he fancies tonight on the big market, he should DM me straight after this, and I'll show him around, and then we might just walk up to the stadium and then see if we can sign a contract.
Well, he'd definitely have a good night, no doubt. Emil, thank you.
Cheers.
We'll be discussing Newcastle in more detail in Transfer Talk, I would imagine. But next, we'll be discussing EFL with Joey McAnuff. Could Andy Carroll be heading back to the Premier League? Welcome back to Good Morning Transfers. It's time to welcome our next guest, the man who knows everything you need to know about the EFL. It is the former Reading winger, Joby McAnuff. Good morning to you, Joby. We're going to start with one of your former clubs, Reading, because Liam Moore has been relieved of the Reading captaincy after making it clear to the manager and the directors, according to them, that he wants to leave the club. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, first of all, I think the big thing to come out of it is the timing of the statement. And, of course, the fact that he's been stripped of the captaincy. I think if you read the statement in detail, it clearly states that discussions and negotiations over his contract situation have been ongoing for a number of months. It's my understanding that was actually as far back as the summer. Reading didn't get into the playoffs, having been there literally the whole of last season. And, of course, being one of the highest earners, which, again, the statement clearly points out, there were discussions about potentially trying to get him off the wage bill. By all accounts, those discussions were amicable. He certainly showed a willingness to try and come to an agreement with the club. Clearly, that agreement hasn't been forthcoming, and that's where we find ourselves today, Tom. And I think, certainly from my point of view, I've been in that situation where a club is trying to get rid of you for financial reasons, and a lot of the emphasis has been shifted on to Liam Moore, and I think that there's certainly a little bit more to the story. I certainly don't think it's a brand new situation that he's walked in off the back of the game the other night and said all of a sudden he wants to leave the football club. So I have a little bit of sympathy with him. I'm sure fans are going to be asking why he's not coming out to clarify that. But as a player, you're bound by contractual obligations. You don't want to say anything that's going to bring the club into disrepute and maybe get a fine, or even worse, say something that could leave you in a breach of contract and get your contract terminated. So what I will say, it's a real disappointing situation. A club, obviously, I know very, very well, and it's just a real sad state of affairs and the last thing that they need, given the situation that they're in.
Yeah, good point, really. We might not know the whole of the players' side until something actually happens with it, until there's some movement. A little bit more on Reading as well, though, Joby, because Burnley, they're looking for a new striker. They lost Chris Wood. Could they look into the Championship with Andy Carroll, who is technically, well, officially, a free agent after that short-term deal at Reading expired?
Yeah, listen, Tom, I think it's one that certainly makes a lot of sense for all parties concerned. I think the biggest question mark over Andy Carroll, and there were certainly a few eyebrows raised when he went into Reading on a short-term contract, was over his fitness. His quality has not been in question, and you saw against Fulham, he's had two of probably the best goals I've ever seen disallowed, one overhead kick and one volley from outside of the box. So he's shown that quality is still there. But the big thing that's impressed everyone at Reading is his desire, his commitment. It would have been very easy for him to come in and go through the motions. He's played games, he's played minutes, he's been very effective. You look at the Burnley situation with Chris Wood leaving, the way that they play, I certainly think it would be a good fit from that point of view. Whether he'd be number one on that list, I probably doubt at this moment, but certainly he will be in that conversation of who could come and replace Chris Wood. We've spoken about January being a window where people need to come in and make an impact. He's proven at that level. He is fit, and I think for a short-term solution, certainly is a viable option for Burnley at this moment in time.
Well, what other options are there if they were to look into the Championship or EFL? We mentioned Carroll there. There's no way, surely, that Ben Brereton Diaz is going to go from Blackburn to Burnley because they are arch rivals. But there is talent, goal-scoring talent in the Championship.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he's one that, again, would probably be on the list, whether he feels at this stage that is the right move for him, given Burnley's situation, given that rivalry. I think Kiefer Moore could be another one, in terms of fitting that bill, that mould of real target man number 9 for Cardiff. There were rumours in the summer about offers being rejected from Wolves. That never went through, and his form this season hasn't been fantastic. So again, that could be a player that Burnley would be potentially looking at to fill that void that's been left. I think the style of play is really, really important. So you are looking at that real target man type player to go in and try and fit the bill for Burnley.
Well, in League One, Charlton re-signed Chukwuemeka for an undisclosed fee on Friday, and he scored in stoppage time on his return on Saturday to get a point against Cheltenham. Can he find his best form again under Johnny Jackson?
Oh, absolutely. No question about it. I think Chukwuemeka has proven, certainly at League One level, 15 league goals last season, which obviously led to his move to Birmingham. Lee Bowyer, a manager who knew him well and had him. I think from Birmingham's point of view, it's actually not a bad piece of business. They took him on a free. They've sold him for a reported 300,000. And I think for Chukwuemeka, you want to be somewhere where you feel comfortable. He obviously knows Johnny Jackson really well from his time there, who was the assistant manager when Chukwuemeka was there. And he's obviously come out and said that they've had a really good relationship in the past. So I'm sure that was a big factor for him. And again, Charlton, having had a really good start under Johnny Jackson when he was interim manager, had a little bit of a dip. So again, coming on, making that immediate impact would be massive for Johnny Jackson. And I'm sure Chukwuemeka can rediscover that form that we've seen him before in League One.
Yeah, I agree. I'm a big fan of his. Joby, thank you. We'll see you next week.
Cheers, Tom. Thanks, guys.
Back to the Premier League with Chelsea. Chelsea fans get in touch. Hashtag transfer talk. Their search for a left wing back continues. They're interested in taking PSG's Lewin Kurzawa on loan. He's currently out of favour. Thomas Tuchel knows him from his time when he was in charge at PSG. But Jess, why do they need this left back stroke left wing back?
Well, Ben Chilwell, of course, out till the end of the season, so they're going to need a replacement. Now, Chelsea do have a couple of wing backs on their books that aren't actually with the club at the moment. For example, Ian Maatsen, who's at Coventry, Emerson Palmieri, who's at Lyon as well. But the agreement with Maatsen's agreement, his loan deal, means that he can't come back. He can't be recalled because he's played a certain number of matches. Lyon have rejected Chelsea's want to recall Palmieri from Lyon as well. So those two are out of the equation. Now, they have called back Kennedy from Flamengo. So that's a possibility. He could come in and replace Ben Chilwell. But as you can see, Chelsea is still looking for that left wing back. Tuchel will want extra cover to provide competition for places in that position.
Yeah, Kennedy he played there for Newcastle, hasn't he, in the Premier League when he was on loan at St James's Park. Anton, Jess mentioned a lot of players that are out on loan. They are owned by Chelsea. How's it got to this? Why do they need to go into the market when they've got players that they are their players?
Oh, I mean, look, Chelsea clearly made a decision that these players are better suited out on loan than they are within the football club, because they've actually got 4 left wing backs, not even wing backs, left wing backs out on loan at the moment. Like you say, you mentioned Ian Maatsen, you mentioned Emerson Palmieri, you've also got Juan Castillo, who was on loan at Birmingham, and don't forget Baba Rahman, who's at Reading, who's currently starting at left back for Ghana at the Africa Cup of Nations. So that's 4 players potentially they could have had in the squad if they wanted them to. And also, it's not the world's worst problem. Obviously, it's an important position in the way that Thomas Tuchel plays. But they put Callum Hudson-Odoi potentially at wing back before. They put Azpilicueta on the left before. They put Reece James, who obviously isn't fit at the moment, but will come back, on the left before. So they have versatility within the squad. But still, it's Chelsea. They want to do better in the Premier League. They want to go back to back winning the Champions League. So they're going to target big names, even if they have the slightest deficiency in their squad.
What other positions are they looking at? We know they want a left wing back. Kyle, what other positions are they looking at? Because everyone keeps tweeting in to say Eden Hazard.
Well, yeah, I think that's a name that will always be thrown around, especially from fans. But it could possibly be another defender, but this time a centre-back. I mean, there's an ongoing situation with Antonio Rudiger. I mean, he's out of contract at the end of the season. His representatives have held talks with foreign clubs over a potential free transfer abroad this summer. Now, we know we've been speaking about this. Rudiger has reportedly turned down Chelsea's efforts already to get him to sign a contract renewal, as you didn't think it was enough money. However, Chelsea could be set to go back to Rudiger with an improved contract offer. They did manage to tie down Thiago Silva's future. 37 years old, he's there for an extra year at Stamford Bridge. But looking at those two, people could argue, obviously, I was at the game this weekend and Chelsea fans were saying that they think Rudiger's possibly one of the best defenders in the world currently right now. They will want to tie him down and keep him there, but who could be that centre-back partner? I think that, yes, Thiago Silva looks brilliant, even though people like me have mentioned his age, 37. He's still doing it, though, in the Premier League. But is that the future for Chelsea? I don't think so. So maybe they could be looking at another centre-back, bringing in and strengthening that defence.
Yeah, well, Mark agrees at transfer, hashtag transfer talk says Chelsea need the whole back line covered, right back, left back and centre-back. Right, we expect to be talking about Erling Haaland a lot in the summer, but could he move in this window? In a post-match interview over the weekend, where Haaland actually scored twice, he said he was being pressured to make a decision on his future by Borussia Dortmund. He also said he would make a decision soon. Right, Anton, let's get all sides of this situation and start with the Dortmund side. I can completely understand why they would want to know whether Haaland's going to either sign a new contract, go now, or go in the summer.
Absolutely. I remember sitting around this desk a year ago when Haaland and his agent were going on a European tour and touting out seeing where he was going next. So, of course, Dortmund have been in limbo for the last year, wondering what on earth's going on, whilst they have this ticking time bomb of the clause in his contract. 75 million euros is the release fee that kicks in the summer. So Dortmund want to know, OK, do we have to sell you now so we can name our price? Are we going to sell you in the summer, where obviously we know how much we're going to get for you and we might need to get a replacement in? Or is there any chance we can get you to sign a new contract and we can then dictate our price whenever we want? Please, we just want an answer. And Haaland is pushing back by saying, look, you're putting me under pressure here, guys. This is a big move. And it is a huge move for Haaland. For what happens next, obviously, it dictates the next few years of his career because there is interest from all of the top European clubs.
But I can also understand Haaland's side of things. He says, I've got a contract and I'm honouring it. What's the problem?
Yeah, exactly. I'm honouring it and I'm playing well. I mean, look at the situation. The world is his oyster. He could literally sit down with any club and say, this is where I want to go. This is how much I want you to pay me. Because he's in such a good position because of how prolific he is as a goal scorer. And I think it's very telling that he's spoken out publicly and saying that Dortmund are putting him under pressure. Is that a sense that there's some irritation from Haaland there about how the club are pushing him? Perhaps he doesn't want to be under that pressure. Interesting. He didn't have to come out publicly and say anything, but he chose to. Now, he's 21 years of age, which is staggering considering how good he is. And usually I'd be of the mind where I say, just stay in the league, develop, stay at the club where you're comfortable. You've been there for many years. It's your chance to develop and to improve and perhaps win a few trophies there. But he's so ahead of his years in terms of his playing ability. I think go to a more high-profile league, go to La Liga, go to the Premier League, go wherever you want, go and have fun. I would personally love to see him here in the Premier League. Imagine if he played here. It would be fantastic. But remember, there's all these European clubs vying for his signature, including the top Premier League clubs, Chelsea, Liverpool, Manchester City, for example. He was born in Leeds. Who's to say he won't end up there?
You just put a big smile on Leeds, and they're smiling already after yesterday's result as well.
Would you like that, Leeds fans?
I think they might. Right, it's time for our quiz this morning. We test your January transfer window knowledge with a little teaser. This morning's question is, Real Madrid paid Portsmouth £20 million for which player in January 2009? Our producer thinks this is a really tough one. He was angry when I got it in half a second. Tweet us at Sky Sports News using the hashtag TransferTalk. We'll reveal the answer in a few minutes. Got it right as well, amongst others, so well done to you.
Yeah, bit of breaking news, and it's all about Wolverhampton Wanderers. They are close to signing Estoril winger Chiquinho on a £3 million deal. He will be in the West Midlands today for a medical. Personal terms have been agreed with the Portugal under-21 international, so the deal could be done in the next 24 hours. Now, Chiquinho has played 15 times in Liga NOS this season, started 9 times, scoring 3 goals, but obviously he's a winger, so bring on the speculation about Adama Traore's future.
Yeah, exactly. We'll probably talk about that one a little bit more, transfer talk, a little bit later on with Adama Traore. Right, but now to Manchester United. They're another side who are focusing more on outgoings rather than new signings at this stage. Right, Kyle, what's the latest on Anthony Martial?
Well, another Instagram drama, it would seem, after this weekend. Anthony Martial has taken to Instagram. He's denied the accusation from interim manager Ralph Rangnick that he refused to play for Manchester United in that game against Aston Villa at the weekend. He said, "I will never refuse to play a match for Man United. I've been here for 7 years, and I never disrespected and I never will disrespect the club and the fans. Now, it's very interesting because this comes after those comments, as I said, from Ralf Rangnick, where he says he didn't want to be in the squad. He would have been in the squad normally, but he didn't want to, and that was the reason why he didn't travel with us yesterday. Now, we do know there's been talk already about Martial's future. He wants to leave on loan this month to get regular first-team football. Sevilla remain his preferred destination because he believes that is where he will play the most, but there is interest from other clubs, including Barcelona, Juventus as well. I guess it's going to come down to money. It's going to come down to his wages. Will it be a loan or a permanent move for him? But he definitely wants first-team football.
Is it time for change for the player, Jess?
It all seems to have gone a bit sour, really, doesn't it? When you've got a manager coming out publicly to criticise you in that way, to say that you didn't want to play football in what was a really important match for Manchester United, and then you've got him coming back and saying, actually, I did want to play. It seems a bit murky, and it never ends well when you've got player and manager going at each other in public, airing their dirty laundry. He's had just 2 Premier League starts this season. He's out of favour, clearly, with Rangnick. Can he work his way back into the team? Possibly. Perhaps things have gone too far. He was also out of favour with the previous manager, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. Maybe it's time for him to move now if he wants to play regularly.
But, Anton, it won't be easy for Manchester United. I mean, there'll be lots of people who want him, but a lot of clubs don't have any money at the moment. Most clubs don't have any money at the moment. So to move him on, they'd have to either take a big hit or it'd have to be on loan, which they don't want to do.
Well, they don't want to do that. So who can reasonably afford him? Carl mentioned Barcelona. Well, I don't think they can afford anyone, but technically they kind of can. So, however they want to do their finances confuses me. But Sevilla was his preferred destination. You've seen how they've worked with other forwards. But Anthony Martial will be on more than any other Sevilla player. So how on earth they get that deal done, like you said, without Manchester United taking a huge hit on a player they, like you said, Jess, they've just accused of not wanting to. That's one heck of an accusation against a player. So I can see why Martial has taken, to social media to put his side across. Because if he wants to move, he doesn't be seen as that kind of player at all. So murky is an interesting word to use. I think it's kind of, it's not far off, is it? This is fascinating. Good development for us to watch, but not very nice to be embroiled in it, I'm sure.
Well, we'll keep an eye on that. But we haven't talked about Arsenal yet. We are going to now. Arsenal fans have been getting in touch anyway using hashtag transfer talk. They all want to know what's the latest on Dusan Vlahovic. Jess, what is the latest?
Let me tell you. The Fiorentina chief executive, Joe Baroni, has been speaking in the last few days. And I've got some quotes from him here. And he says, we expect an answer from him as soon as possible on a new contract offer he's talking about. But we have our plans. He's told a media outlet. A few days ago, I spoke with Dusan because if he wants to sign in Florence, he must say it and sign it, otherwise say what he wants to do. Asked about the question of the 17 million euros of Arsenal, we are serious about evaluating everything. At the moment, nothing has arrived, but in case, we will also evaluate Arsenal.
Interesting, because he's certainly not saying he's not for sale.
There you go.
He's even mentioned Arsenal himself. Maybe he was specifically asked about Arsenal. But that, if I was an Arsenal fan...
That's a come and get me, isn't it?
Fill me with hope.
I definitely think that, and I think that the fans must be looking at the situation because everyone's talking about Erling Haaland, but away from Erling Haaland, Vlahovic is another name that is also been thrown around there now. I can't see Haaland going to Arsenal, so what do Arsenal need? They want to secure themselves a striker that can hopefully do it on the world stage and can project them back up towards the top of the Premier League. Dusan Vlahovic could be someone that could do that for him. And if they can secure him maybe in January before the summer where Erling Haaland's his future is decided and then everyone else's attention turns to Vlahovic, well, if Arsenal can get him already and get that deal done, he's their player and that is it. End of. They've secured what they need and who they need.
Why do they need a striker, though, Anton?
Well, their top scorer in the Premier League this season is Emile Smith-Rowe, not a striker. Second top scorer, Bukayo Saka, not a striker. So, Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, who's supposed to be the focal point of the attack, is persona non grata and only scored 4 goals this season. Alexander Lacazette is out of contract at the end of the season. Eddie Nketiah hasn't started a league game this season. Following Balogun's just gone out on loan to the Championship. So there is a lack of a kind of central striker, not just now, but for the next few years in line, which is why I think it's, like Kai was saying, it's quite a good time for Arsenal to get excited about it. But surely the biggest bargaining chip Arsenal will have going into this if they say, we're going to get Champions League football. And at the moment, Arsenal can't guarantee that. So it's kind of almost like a catch-22 where they need Champions League football to get the good players, but also they need the good players to get into the Champions League. So I'm not sure how this is going to develop.
Well, Arsenal have also been looking at Arta, the central midfielder from Juventus, but Juventus boss Maximiliano Allegri has suggested he wants Arta to stay. He said this on Arta: I can say that this is the Juventus squad, and with these players, we must reach the end of the season in the best possible way. We are growing. Kyle, you've got about 15 seconds. Why do they want a central midfielder?
Well, they've got players that are at the Africa Cup of Nations, Thomas Partey and Mohamed El Neni as well. Granit Xhaka, we know that he's got a suspension he has to serve. They did ask for the North London derby to be postponed, so it shows they clearly need players, and that's why they're looking for a central midfielder.
Well done, Kyle. Right, Good Morning Transfers is back at 9 o'clock tomorrow, as it is all the way through the transfer window, right until deadline day, which is 2 weeks today, by the way. Transfer Talk is back at 1 o'clock, as it is on a Monday, for more transfer news. And remember, there's the Transfer Show at 5 o'clock and 7 o'clock with Dharmesh and Carvey. Coming up on Sky Sports News, the Football Show with Rob Watton, Sue Smith and Stephen Warnock that analyse where it all went wrong for Rafael Benitez.